A single touch, less than 2 seconds to dismantle a decade of technical certainty. Los Angeles, 1967. Late afternoon in a dojo where men trained in systems with centuries of tradition prepare to witness something that will challenge everything they've learned about balance, strength, and control. The air carries specific tension, not of imminent violence, but of truth about to be demonstrated. Bruce Lee stands at the center of the mat, 26 years old, relaxed posture, hands below his waist. 3 meters from him, a national judo champion in classic defensive position, knees bent, center of gravity low, decades of training compressed into a base he believes unshakable. 12 people watch in silence. No one imagines that the next breath will change everyone's understanding of what it means to master one's own body. The provocation still echoes in the space. You can't break my center. All that speed won't move someone with real base. Words spoken loudly, intentionally, before instructors and practitioners who already questioned whether Bruce Lee was a legitimate fighter or just a skilled cinematic performer. The challenge wasn't merely technical, it was a direct attack on the philosophical revolution Bruce Lee had been building for years. The idea that rigid combat systems operated on incomplete physical premises, that true mastery transcended martial taxonomies. Now, before qualified witnesses, in neutral territory where institutional credentials weigh more than conceptual innovation, he needs to prove that a decade of deconstruction and synthesis wasn't theoretical delusion. He needs to demonstrate absolute superiority without crossing the line into humiliation. He needs to win twice, technically and morally. The dojo occupies a converted warehouse in the industrial region of Los Angeles, near Chinatown, but not inside it. Exposed brick walls, high ceiling with metal beams, central mat 12 by 12 meters, surrounded by side mirrors that multiply every movement. Traditional equipment around the edges, heavy bags, makiwara, wooden dummies for strike training. Smell of old sweat impregnated in the padding, mixed with rubber odor from mats heated by use. 3 high windows on the west side let in orange late afternoon light that cuts the space in diagonal strips, creating harsh contrast between illuminated areas and deep shadows. There's no decoration, no motivational posters. The space exists only for function, testing body against technique, will against discipline. Late Thursday afternoon, a time when only the committed remain. There are no curious beginners or martial tourists. The 12 present are black belts, assistant instructors, or active competitors, people who've dedicated years to understanding combat physics through specific systems. 3 Shotokan karate practitioners, all over 30, observe from the left side. 2 judoka talk quietly near the entrance, arms crossed, skeptical expressions. 4 traditional kung fu practitioners position themselves near the mirrors, divided between ethnic loyalty to Bruce Lee and distrust about his unorthodox methods. A 40-year-old instructor, respected veteran, remains isolated in the right corner, observing everything with professional neutrality. The silence isn't one of reverence, but of assessment. Everyone came to judge. Social context weighs on every breath in the space. California, 1967. Asian martial arts explode in popularity among Americans, but under specific hierarchy. Oriental masters teach immutable systems to submissive Westerners, preserving technical purity and documented lineage. Innovation is seen as corruption, adaptation as disguised ignorance. Bruce Lee destabilizes this order by questioning dogmas, by teaching non-Asians without hierarchical rituals, by affirming that traditional systems contain structural inefficiencies. For the established martial community, he represents a double threat. He challenges the technical authority of systems and subverts the expected social role of the Asian American, who should be guardian of exotic tradition, not philosophical revolutionary. The judoka who provoked him doesn't act alone. He channels the collective discomfort of men who built identity on foundations that Bruce Lee claims are incomplete. This confrontation isn't personal, it's institutional. The judoka is named Frank Myers, 29 years old, national middleweight category champion for 2 consecutive years. Broad shoulders, low hips, hands that seem to have their own memory for GI grips. He earned his black belt under direct guidance of a Japanese instructor with lineage traceable to Jigoro Kano. Competes monthly, teaches at 3 different dojos, possesses documented curriculum that any sports federation recognizes. When he enters the mat, he carries institutional legitimacy, years of tournaments, official certifications, respect earned through channels that the American martial community understands and validates. His posture isn't just physical, it's social. He represents established order testing a methodological outsider who threatens consensus about what constitutes true mastery in hand-to-hand combat. Bruce Lee, by contrast, has no championships, doesn't compete in tournaments because he considers sports rules artificial, limitations that distort real effectiveness in favor of arbitrary scoring. Teaches in a rented garage, charges for private lessons, develops a philosophical system he calls Jeet Kune Do, but which still lacks formal recognition from any federation. For traditional practitioners present, he's an untested instructor with reputation built on demonstrations for laypeople and small roles in television productions. Impressive speed? Yes. Exceptional coordination? Certainly. But does that prove effectiveness against a credentialed specialist with a decade of training in postural control and balance breaking? Distrust permeates every look directed at him. The silent question everyone shares. Does he really believe he can move someone trained not to be moved? Minutes before the confrontation, Frank demonstrated base to a small group. He assumed a low defensive position, instructed two practitioners to push his chest simultaneously with full force. They tried. Frank's body yielded 3 centimeters, but his feet didn't slide. Leg muscles absorbed impact, redistributed force through hips connected to the ground by decades of Ukemi training. He smiled. Real base doesn't break with a push. Comment directed at Bruce Lee, who was stretching legs on the other side of the mat, apparently indifferent. But 3 people noticed. When Frank spoke, Bruce Lee paused for half a second, tilted his head slightly, then continued stretching. Micro-expression that could mean irritation, curiosity, or calculation. No one could interpret it. The silence that followed carried the weight of inevitability. Confrontation ceased being possibility and became destiny. Frank walks to the center of the mat. Each step deliberate, weight distributed evenly, body in state of relaxed readiness, posture of someone who's faced 100 competitors and knows that precipitous confidence is the first fatal error. He stops 4 meters from Bruce Lee, adjusts his GI, bends knees until hips lower 8 centimeters, hands at chest height, palms facing inward, prepared to intercept movement or execute a grip. Controlled breathing, 4 seconds of inspiration, 6 of exhalation, technique he learned to keep heart rate below 100 beats during combat. Eyes fixed on the center of Bruce Lee's chest, not on his face, because his Japanese instructor taught that the body doesn't lie, but eyes do. Leg muscles carry specific tension, ready to explode in any direction. 12 people form an irregular semicircle maintaining 5 meters distance. No one speaks. Breath synchronized involuntarily. Bruce Lee remains motionless for 3 complete seconds. Neutral posture, feet shoulder-width apart, knees imperceptibly bent, arms at his sides, hands relaxed below his waist. There's no visible tension in any upper muscle. Shoulders naturally dropped, neck aligned with spine, chin slightly tucked. Neutral facial expression, no challenge, contempt, or demonstration of intense focus. He appears to be waiting for a bus. This absence of theatricality is disturbing. Frank expected to see preparation, reading of attack intention, some sign that he's being analyzed. But Bruce Lee simply exists in the space, like a chair or column. Then, almost imperceptible movement, weight transfer to left leg, hip rotation of 2 degrees clockwise, slow and complete exhalation lasting 6 seconds. His body doesn't prepare for action. His body becomes latent action. Bruce Lee closes distance. 2 fluid steps, weight gliding through metatarsals without audible impact on the mat. Hips guiding movement while torso remains vertically stable. There's no visible acceleration. Body transits from stillness to displacement without detectable intermediate phase. Frank adjusts posture automatically, lowers center of gravity 4 more centimeters, prepares reception. Distance reduces to 2 meters, then 1.5 meters. Bruce Lee's hands still relaxed, arms hanging. 1 meter. Frank contracts core muscles, anchors feet to the mat through pressure distribution he's trained 10,000 times, 80 centimeters. Bruce Lee's right hand rises, movement that seems casual, as if to scratch his own chest, but changes direction in the last third of trajectory. There's no punch, no visible push. Palm touches the center of Frank's sternum, 5 centimeters below the clavicle. Light contact, exploratory. 0.2 seconds. Frank processes contact. There's no perceptible force, pressure equivalent to leaning against a wall. He maintains base, prepares counter movement, grip on Bruce Lee's wrist, followed by rotation for lateral imbalance. But while right hand remains in contact, Bruce Lee shifts hips, not backward or forward in straight line. Diagonal movement, 6 centimeters forward, 3 downward, 2 degrees clockwise rotation. Right shoulder descends simultaneously 1 centimeter, aligning arm, torso, hips, and legs in a unified structure. Force doesn't come from the arm, comes from the ground, transmitted through perfect kinetic chain. The touch on Frank's chest doesn't push, redirects. Center of gravity finds force vector that attacks not body mass, but postural architecture. Frank's body doesn't receive impact. Frank's body discovers it was balanced on incorrect premise. Arms open involuntarily. 4 steps backward, uncontrolled, weight on heels. He doesn't fall. But movement was completely involuntary. Frank stops after the 4th step, recovers partial balance, looks at his own hands as if he didn't recognize the nerve endings controlling them. Expression isn't of pain, humiliation, or anger. It's pure technical confusion. Brain processing dissonance between intention and result. I ordered to remain still. Body retreated. Why? He looks at Bruce Lee, searching for explanation he could categorize within known martial taxonomy. Was it a grip? There was no contact on clothes. Was it a strike? There was no measurable impact. Was it a judo technique he doesn't know? Impossible. He studied the complete system for 15 years. Silence on the mat lasts 6 complete seconds. No one moves. 12 pairs of eyes locked on Frank, then on Bruce Lee, then back on Frank, seeking understanding that doesn't arrive. Collective breathing remains suspended. Bruce Lee remains in the same position for 2 seconds, then retreats half a step, lowers hands completely until they rest at his sides. Looks at Frank, not with contempt, not with superiority, not with pity. Neutral observation, the same way a lab technician observes the result of a controlled experiment. Hypothesis confirmed, data recorded, protocol completed. Then he turns, walks back to the side of the mat where he was stretching before the confrontation. There's no verbal statement, no gesture to witnesses, no verification of social recognition. He resumes stretching his left calf exactly where he paused, as if the last 30 seconds were a necessary but uninteresting administrative interruption. This indifference to status disturbs witnesses more than the physical touch disturbed Frank. 3 kung fu practitioners exchange looks among themselves. One of the judoka opens his mouth, closes without emitting sound. The veteran instructor in the right corner crosses his arms more tightly, tilts his head, observes Bruce Lee with reluctant recognition. 3 weeks later, 4 of those present seek Bruce Lee for private lessons. They don't ask for combat training. They ask for understanding of applied biomechanics and principles of force transfer through body structure. Frank doesn't return to the dojo during this period, but 6 weeks after the incident, he reappears. In private conversation with 2 practitioners, he admits he didn't technically understand what happened, that force came from a place judo doesn't teach to defend. It's not emotional reconciliation. It's inevitable technical recognition that emerges when ego finally allows brain to process empirical evidence. A karate instructor begins referencing Bruce Lee in his own classes, not as a superior fighter, but as a thinker who understands movement physics beyond technical taxonomy. Story circulates orally through the martial community. Decades later, when Bruce Lee becomes a global cultural icon, this episode is cited by serious practitioners as evidence that his effectiveness was real before it was cinematic. The question remains, echoing beyond martial arts, what defines your humanity when you possess absolute superiority over someone who publicly provoked you, using all your power or just what's necessary? Which victory is truly superior?